Hi, everyone. Welcome. We invite you to take your food, find a seat. We're going to start very, very, very soon. Hello, and welcome to the Harvard Center for International Development Friday Speaker Series. I am Fernando Chavarria, and I'm a student at Harvard Medical School and a CID student ambassador. Here at CID, our mission is to build a thriving world for all. We work across all the university and a global network of researchers and practitioners to build an international pool of talent, convene academic and practitioner networks, and deploy breakthrough research to address the world's most pressing challenges. It's why we are so excited about today's conversation on the politics of failed development inside IMF Look at Africa. Before we get started, I want to mention a few housekeeping items. Please enjoy lunch, but help us the planet by doing your part. All food items, including cups, napkins, and utensils, are compostable. Please hold all the questions for our speaker until he has finished the presentation and has opened the Q&A section. At the time, I will go around with the mic so we can hear you clearly. We are recording today's session, which is on the record, but we'll keep the camera off the speaker side, only ensuring that only voices from the audiences will be recorded. The video of this event will be available on the CID YouTube channel afterwards. A CID team member may take photos of the event for use on CID social media channels. If you are not comfortable with your photo being used this way, please let a CID team member know. Please use the QR code located around the room to check into today's event. This helps the CID track attendance and cater future events for the audience. And please make sure to subscribe to the CID newsletter, follow Harvard CID on LinkedIn and Instagram to learn more about our events and stay connected to the CID community. Without any further ado, I'd like to briefly introduce our speaker for today. Dr. Gomez Agou is currently the IMF resident representative of Gabon. He has more than 15 years of experience working for the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the Ministry of Good Governance in Côte d'Ivoire. Over his career, he worked on the Debt Relief Initiative for Côte d'Ivoire, the Development Plan for Indonesia, the Economic Recovery in Tunisia, and economic policy advice, including COVID-19 crisis in Ghana. In addition, he worked on current economic and financial issues in Asia, Middle East, North Africa, and Sub-Saharan Africa. These issues include economic diversification, public debt, job employment, exchange rate policy, strategic management of natural resources, and fight against corruption. Dr. Gomez Agou holds a PhD from the University of Southern Pantheon in France, focused on economic diversification and demographics. He also is a graduate from the Harvard Kennedy School, the National School of Statistics and Applied Economics, and the Houphouët-Boigny National Polytechnic Institute in Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you all for being here, and Dr. Gomez, over to you.
Thank you very much. I should say that I'm quite intimidated by this crowd. When I was told that this is going to be a speaker series, I thought it would be like 20 people, but we have so many people in the room, and very sorry for those who have to stand in the back. I would like to say thank you to the CID director and the whole team who have been doing an amazing work in getting me doing this presentation. I had this morning a workshop with a fantastic group of students. And we're now doing this speaker series. I'm very glad to be in Boston. It feels good to be back at Kennedy School. This is our place, and this is a great place to be because you have great people in that school and in Harvard across. Today, I would like to have a conversation about I would say the politics of why development might have some challenges to move ahead. It's not, this presentation is not about providing answers to the challenges of development outside. Is more raising questions and also creating that questions generation in your mind, so that when you spend your time here at Kennedy School, you have the chance to keep thinking about it and go outside and make a difference. Here, what we're trying to do also is to present you the reality of the challenges that we're facing outside once you're outside Kennedy School in the world of development. I believe that to change something, the most important thing is not to have the solutions, is to know the reality of that thing. If you don't understand how something works, you cannot change it. So it's important for us to understand the real intricacies of development outside, and then we can start thinking about solutions. So I'm going to go quickly through, I think, few key challenges. I will call them challenges that we face outside once you are out of Kennedy School in the development world in our dealings with development programs. The world is organized by several actors who are in charge of development, the big institutions like the IMF, the World Bank, which we call the Bretton Woods institutions, and other multilateral banks. And you have also a lot of bilateral agencies that are in charge of helping countries in implementing development programs. One thing that I want us to keep in mind when we're thinking about development is that development, I would say, endeavor had an history, and history is important. History matters if you want to understand the present. I used to say sometimes that the history is a footnote to the present. The institutions that are involved in the development today were built at the beginning in a very specific context. That's something that we need to keep in mind, so that we're a bit more, I would say, tolerant, or a bit more flexible, or less maybe demanding to what the institution was supposed to do, and it's not necessarily happening. Think about 1944, when we just get out of the Second World War. The countries decide to put together institutions that will do mainly two things. One, the financial system was completely broken. There was a huge competitive devaluation between countries. So there was a need to have a stable and cooperative environment for all the countries of the world to be able to trade among themselves and to have business. So that was ensuring the financial stability of that world right after the Second World War. After the war, you also had many countries that were destroyed by the war. So you need also an institution that was capable of rebuilding. And when I say rebuilding, is really physical reconstruction of those countries. The countries that gathered at the Bretton Woods conference, there was 44 countries. And those countries were, at that conference, were mostly the ones that suffered from the war. So when the IMF was created and the World Bank was created, the World Bank was supposed to be in charge of rebuilding physically. History even says that the first World Bank program was done in France. It was really engineers rebuilding things in that country. And that's partly the reason why the World Bank at the beginning was called the International Reconstruction and Development Bank. So the IRBD, that was the initial name of the World Bank, because it was really about rebuilding. And that, the idea of having those two institutions at that time made fully sense. We needed to have a financial system that worked, and we needed to rebuild those countries. But then over time, we are in 1944. By that time, most of the countries in Africa were not even countries. They were still colonies. They were not independent countries. So the concerns, the development concerns of those countries at the time were not present, because we were dealing with 44 countries which had different type of concerns. And the two institutions over time, as you have new members coming in, today the IMF, from 44 members, are 191 members. So with new issues, with new challenges, so the institutions are trying to adapt. And the leadership of the two institutions have been working a lot to try to do a lot of reforms. And I can mention a few of them. And the most recent one is that in the past, remember, in 1944, there was no African countries participating to that discussion, for a good reason, because those were not independent countries. So until a few months ago, Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, out of the 24 member countries, like, because you know the IMF and the World Bank, they have a board. It's like a company. You have a board, then you have the the executive branch. We are the executive branch. We called staff, and you have the board members. Board members are the representative of countries, and different countries have different shares. It's like any company. Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, had out of 24 representative of countries, Sub-Saharan Africa only had 2 to voice the concern and the demand and the needs of the countries at the board of the IMF. But the leadership has worked. Now we have a third chair that has been given to Africa. So this is an example of the reform and the work that internally is being done at the World Bank, at the IMF, and other institutions to try to improve what history has given us in 1944. That's one thing important to keep in mind. Another thing that I think is also another big challenge in the world of development is that institutions have mandates. It's like the police catch or arrest the criminals, but they cannot do trial. It's the justice that does the trial. So the institution, the same thing. Institutions have mandates. The IMF is in charge of the financial stability. The World Bank is in charge of growth. So there are very specific mandates for each institution. And because we have the mandates, the issue that we have also is that the development issues are very, very large and very diverse. So sometimes the work that institutions are doing might not necessarily address all the issues that the countries are facing at the development level. And I can raise a few of them. For instance, you take demographics. It's a big issue. And it's not clear who's going. I mean, of course, we have the UNFP, but I'm really talking about from a financial standpoint, the financial institutions. We do not have the expertise or the mandate to deal with that, but it's a big issue because if you take Africa today, Africa is growing at 2.5% population-wide per year. So even if you take a country that is growing, let's say, if you take the average Sub-Saharan African growth, let's say it's 4%. We are basically saying that the income per capita is growing in Africa at a rate of about 1%, more or less. If you're asking me how long is going to take for the average guy in Africa to see his income doubling, it's 70 years. And we have Deb who is in the room. So I hope that I didn't get the math wrong. Okay, there you go. So Deb was my professor as I was in MPID 1. She's the one who did the boot camp. I'm sure that some of you can relate to that. So it will take 70 years. So it's not just growth, it's not just economic policies, but demographics is also playing a huge role. If you take Asia, I mean, we like to talk about the Asian miracles, but I look at the data. When things start picking up in Asia in the 60s, or Japan, maybe a bit more earlier, the same time that you see that there was growth that was picking up, demographic rates was also dropping very fast, bringing it to a level of 1% or even less. So that's a big issue today for Africa. Another big issue for Africa is the issue of energy transition or climate change, which is another big issue, which of course the IMF has put in place a new instrument. I was talking about the reforms. This is one of the reforms of the IMF. We put in place what we call the Resilience Sustainability Trust, which is a fund basically meant to try to finance and support financially countries to deal with the costs of climate change and energy transition. But of course, the needs of the countries are huge. Some estimates are even talking about 100 billion to try to per year. And if you look at the climate finance that goes to Africa, it's a very little amount. Very little. Africa is the region that received the least climate finance. Why? It's the region that suffers the most from climate change, and it's the region that contributes the less to gas emission. So that's another big issue that the countries are facing. Another important, and you know, I was at a conference last time, and someone was saying a conference organized by one of the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim, great conference. And the speaker that was talking that day was saying, Africa needs to do an energy transition. But if you don't have energy, what are you transitioning from? In Africa, you have 47% of the people who do not have electricity. 47% of Africa who do not have electricity is like Europe, excluding Russia population. So keep in mind, like the whole Europe, you take out Russia, the whole population in Europe out of Russia, they do not have electricity. Those are the big development challenges, and which are very difficult to address because a lot of the mandate and the issues that we are tackling are very specific. And it's not clear how those other big issues are going to be comprehensively addressed. And sometimes we have to acknowledge that because you have those big issues, you don't fully have the government intention on the issues that you're raising. And I can see that on a daily basis. I'm the head of the IMF office in Gabon. And while you're talking about debt, while you're talking about growth, while you're talking about taxes, they're thinking about education, they're thinking about healthcare, they're thinking about energy, they're thinking about electricity outage. So those issues are there, and they're not helping to get the conversation going. Another important thing that is also very challenging in the world of development is the fact that because we have so many countries, and you at the same time need to make sure that you do equal treatment to all countries. The way you deal with countries has to be fair. It means that it's very difficult to build one tool for each country. I mean, it's not just the IMF or the World Bank, but in general, you always have to trade between breadth and depth, right? I mean, it's a reasonable way of going after things. So we have programs, but the programs also need to keep in mind that it has to be, in terms of treatment, reasonably equal for all countries. That also means that, of course, there will be some challenges that you might not necessarily be able to address, not only because you have a very specific mandate, but also because you have the tool that you have to do what you have to do. So that's another big issue. Another thing that I also wanted to raise is also in the development world, you have the need to have a bit more involvement from the recipient countries. I think that's key. And I can give a few examples. Sometime you go into a program negotiation with a country, and you need a bit more involvement from the country officials, the stakeholders of that country, because they know much better the reality than the IMF team and the World Bank team and other teams. So there is a need to have a bit more involvement. There is also, and when I'm talking about involvement, it's also having a bit more involvement from non-government stakeholders, like civil society. Because sometimes they have a perception of the reality that the government might not have, or that the IMF might not have. So you need them to be more involved. And sometimes, and this is I think a shared responsibility, which is basically the IMF can be seen as being a bit maybe, oh, those guys are too far. We, the civil society, we cannot reach out to them. I think civil society should reach more to the IMF because the IMF is open to that. We are offering capacity building. We are our offices across the world are open to reach out to them, to talk with them. But if they reach also out to us, we could have a bit more understanding of the country situation and reflect that in our discussion with government. Another important stakeholders that sometimes is on the sideline in the development program discussions with the multilateral or the bilaterals are the private sector. So private sector need to be more involved in the conversation because ultimately it's the private sector that can solve a lot of the big development problems that we are facing. Jobs, for instance. Jobs is now a huge issue in Africa, and it will continue to be one of the biggest issues. Like in 25 years, a large chunk, the largest share of young people in the world working force will be in Africa. In 25 years, you will have one person out of 3 or 4 who will be African. But these questions, I don't think that government can solve them alone. It will have to be private sector, but to have the private sector capable of solving those issues, they need to be part of the conversation. So there is this need for the private sector to get more involved in the interaction with the IMF, with the World Bank, with the multilateral institutions, with the bilateral institutions, with the donors, and with the government. And then finally, I would say that there is also the need for all of us, and I'm talking here now, the HKS guys. There is a need for us to be willing to take more step back and to think about the issues and to wonder whether it's the best way of doing it. Is there a way to improve it? I think sometimes in the development world, we take for granted and for right everything that we find when we get into that world. The way of doing things, the policies, the instruments, the tools. I think there is a need, once you're out of HKS, once one of those institutions or working for one of those stakeholders, whether government, international institutions, private sector, civil society, you need to be able to question the way, the policies, the best practices, all those things. You need to question them with the tools that you would have acquired at HKS and being able to make a difference. I think I will stop here and take questions. Thank you.
So we are gonna take three questions at a time. Please, when raise your hand, I'm gonna give you the mic, and when you have a mic, present yourself, say your name, the program you're taking part of, and where you come from, and then the question. Please, please, please make the questions the most directly possible, because we are not gonna take follow-ups. So who has a question? One.
Yeah. Hi, thank you so much. That was really interesting. I'm Rania, first year MPAID from the UK. And my question is around what you mentioned on the importance of the private sector for job creation specifically. How, in your mind, I think from my experience working in development and working with governments, that's always been the difficulty in terms of enabling government and the private sector to work closer together, communicate in the same language. Like, from your experience, how can that be done better? How can we bring the private sector into these conversations?
Hi, thank you so much for coming. I'm Abby. I'm at the college. I'm from Maryland. My question is kind of like basically hers, but on the civil sector side. What are the challenges civil sector organizations face when trying to approach the IMF? Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Isaac Andrubangara from Sierra Leone, West Africa, MCMPA. My question is, why is it that these Bretton Woods institutions, they manifested so much commitment in rebuilding war-torn Europe, and for 70 years or more, Africa, where they have actually sourced most of the materials for their transformational activities, they continue to put a position of still not being able to find any key solution towards the problems in Africa. One example I'll give you: if you come to Europe, America, Britain, they give subsidies to farmers, to fishermen, everything, but they consistently ask African governments not to give any subsidies. Many governments have been overthrown in Africa, because when you give a subsidy to, let's say, you remove subsidy from a fuel supplier, what happens next? You know, rogue elements get so much support from disgruntled citizens who are poor so much that fuel becomes so expensive. This has played along other things. So I would like to know why consistently with all these challenges, recently you can recall in Nigeria, why are they emphasizing about subsidies when the parent countries are giving subsidies to their on key issues? Thank you.
I think this is a very good question. I will start with your question because that's my favorite, and then it doesn't mean that the other two questions are not, but this is really my favorite. So I take a very specific example of Gabon. In Gabon, the government is providing fuel subsidies. I'm raising this because this is in public knowledge in our report, so it's a public issue, so I can raise it. The government is providing fuel subsidies to the country, to everyone, basically. It untargeted fuel subsidies to everyone. The IMF, as you said, is encouraging the government to rationalize and only giving it to the poor people. That's our position. Our position is not to remove the subsidies, it's to remove it for the people who don't need it and give it to the poor people. And let me tell you why. You take the budget of fuel subsidies in Gabon, it's larger fuel subsidies and other exemptions on goods and services, like things that you buy at the supermarket. The government is also providing exemptions on that, so which is basically subsidies. You take the budget of those subsidies that is provided to everyone. It's more than the budget of education and health put together. So basically, we are saying we are providing subsidies to everyone. And when I say everyone, including a guy like me, who is earning 5 times the average guy in the street, you're providing subsidies to me. In Gabon, I have my own car, which is a V6. When I live in a house that has many rooms, you're providing the subsidies to a guy like me, and you're providing the same subsidies to a poor guy who doesn't have a car. But worse than that, because I have a V6, when I'm driving, I'm consuming more fuel than the guy who's sharing a cab with his 5 kids in one single car of a V4. You're doing a subsidies in a supermarket where everyone can buy food. When I go buy food, I buy 10 breads per day because the kids will have a bread in the morning for a snack at 10, at noon, at 4 when they're watching Netflix, and before going to bed. And every day I buy 10 breads. You take the poor person in Libreville, he eats a bread, 1 bread for 5 people in a day. It's very unfair subsidies. It's unfair from all fronts. And we did a study. Basically, what you have, when you give $100 of, when the government gives out of the budget, the budget is for everyone, right? When the government gives $100 of subsidies to everyone, only $40 goes to the 60 less fortunate or with the 60 lowest income of the country. And you have 60 going to the 40 more rich people in the country. It's very unfair. So the IMF is not saying don't give subsidies. We're saying don't give subsidies to the rich. The rich do not need to be subsidized. And we have, in the world of development, there are frameworks where you can give subsidies to very specific people. For instance, why don't you provide cash subsidies? Our argument is not you should reduce the subsidies budget, is to say, in Gabon, take the 100 that you're giving as a subsidies every year, take the number of the poorest people, I don't know, the bottom 20 or the bottom 10% of the people, split the 100 by the number of people and send them cash or checks. So we're not saying don't give subsidies, we say don't give subsidies to the rich, because I don't need the subsidies. And when the government is giving subsidies to a guy like me, I'm consuming more subsidies because of my living standard than the poor person in the street. It's very unfair. You raised the issue of the civil society. I think the IMF and all the other multilateral institutions, we want to engage with the civil society. In Gabon, as soon as I get a letter or an email or a request from a civil society organization who wants to meet with me to voice their concern, I will make sure that the same week I meet that civil society organization. When I get a letter, an official letter from a civil society person, it will go to Washington. So this is from here an appeal and a call to all civil society organizations. You should reach out to those institutions, and they are open to listen, and you're doing a service to them and to the country. Because if you want to be able to, we want to help the countries to develop. The only way you can change things, as I was saying at the beginning, is by knowing the reality. And regardless of how objective a person can be, you cannot have a comprehensive perception of a reality. I'm standing here, she can see this side, he can see this side, he cannot see this side. So we need all the stakeholders to share with us the information and the reality so that we can engage in a more fruitful and efficient way with the government. And the same for the private sector. I think we take the next questions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Also from my side, I'm Johannes. I'm a first-year MPP student, and before coming here, I spent 3 years working in tax policy at the OECD. I've had some rather frustrating experiences where our team invested a lot in capacity building within finance ministries, but also within the private sector. And it seemed that as soon as the people we worked with left because they had other opportunities or because there was a change in government, the effects seemed to disappear. So I'd be really curious how you, as part of your work, and the IMF in general, have dealt with this challenge of perhaps a lack of institutionalized knowledge, or how to build up this institutionalized knowledge.
Hi, my name is Mary Mugambi. I'm from Kenya. My question is about job creation as a pathway towards elevating the middle class. Last week, I'll give the example of Kenya, my country. We've signed MOUs with Qatar and Germany and everywhere to export our labor because we don't have industries that can create the jobs in the country. 20,000 people showed up and they were all being tested. Can you plumb? Can you do engineering and everything? Only 3,000 passed, which raised questions. Are we doing the right skill training? Are our, so it's a bigger question on, is it skills mismatch? What are the issues and what do we need to do to get employment, job creation for Africa, because we're not growing fast industrially enough to absorb the youth? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Teresa. I'm a first-year student at the MPID program. I have a classical Dev 101 question and I want to see your personal opinion. So we've mentioned that in like the poor country that like you were talking about like how subsidized was given to both rich and poor people, and like there's like a big income inequality in the country. So at this stage, do you think focusing on economic growth is more important, or focusing on income redistribution is more important?
So I will start with the question about the capacity building. I can tell you, I feel you. We all have the same issue. The IMF has a huge branch, and there's a lot of investment into we call it technical assistance in our jargon, which is supported by many donor countries. And we're facing the same issue where you basically provide a lot of TA, that's the way we call it, technical assistant, and then once the person moves, the whole thing collapses. I think that is an issue that is going to stay, I believe, for a while, because you need few things for it to work. The first thing that you need is, at the beginning, you need a good trained workforce coming into the civil service. And that starts with schooling. You need people who are well-trained, because if you have a lot of people who are well-trained, even if one of them was trained specifically by you or by us, and that person leaves, the other people can quickly, their learning curve are pretty steep. They can quickly learn and pick up. The problem is that capacity usually is very weak, because at the very beginning, the education system does not necessarily train people the way they need to be trained well to be able to take up and replace people quickly. That, I think, one critical thing that is there. The other thing, and I might be a bit provocative here, but I think the other thing that is also important is a bit more ownership of the technical assistance by government. In my time in development, I have seen that there is a lot of technical assistance that is provided, but sometimes you end up, in some cases, not all the cases, but few cases, where you end up in a technical assistance that is supply driven and not demand driven. What I mean by that, sometimes the technical assistance provider, they have a budget, they have some ideas, and they want to give it to countries. And then in some cases, they say, the countries will say, yes, just send it over. But in reality, that's not where the most important needs are. But that's where you, the supplier, have, the tool or the support to give. So finally, instead of completely losing it, they say, okay, bring it up. It's like if you're doing you're doing an MPID class, your things are economics, math, and others, and someone comes, he say he wants to teach you robotics, which might be useful maybe in 50 years when artificial intelligence has completely taken over. So you might say, okay, maybe instead of saying no, yeah, bring it over. So you do the robotic class, but you're not into it. You don't have the ownership of it. Then a few weeks after, you forgot most of it. So I think there is a bit of the ownership part that we need to work a bit more, where we have to make sure that we don't just bring the technical assistance, but we bring where it's really needed. And once the government has a real skin into the game, it's not going to be one person holding the institutional memory, it's going to be a group of people. There was a question about jobs. I think that's a big question, and that's, I'm not sure that I have the answer to that. To be completely honest with you, but I will give you my personal view. This is not the IMF view. This is really my personal view. I think one thing that we're lacking a lot in many African countries is technical training school system. It's really, and the way our system in Africa are mostly designed is that you can start from like first grade until 12th grade without having acquired any technical skills. You're good in French, you're good in English, you do math, but you can build nothing. You can plumb nothing, you can fix nothing. And then after that, the culture is that everyone has to go to university. In fact, in our countries, if you look at the budget that goes to the Ministry of Technical Training, and you look at the budget that goes to the Ministry of National Education, there is no match. The budget of Ministry of Technical Training is so tiny because everyone thinks that, oh, this is the side thing that we do for the people who has not succeeded in school. Why, when you take countries that are today emerging countries, I will not mention names, you will see that technical training education system is central to their strategy. Germany, for instance. I'm talking about Germany because this is not now an emerging nation, it's like an old developed nation, so I can talk about it. Germany, for instance. So if we not manage to have people or government to understand that technical training is not just something that you do on the side, but it's a center thing, then we will have a problem. Another thing, why technical training is key is that our economies are not at the frontier or at the potential of development. So we're not into the research. We don't need to do new things to be able to grow. That's the problem of the developed nations. Our nation, we need to be able to adapt what already exists out there. But for that, you don't need a PhD. And sorry for the PhD guys in the room. You need someone with a good technical training, high school level, bachelor maybe, to sit, look at how this thing was done, and just replicate it. But that you only get it from technical training. So that is missing. And then finally, I think there was one last question, which I think I forgot. Sorry. I think you cannot do one without the other, because by doing one excessively, it's going to topple, destabilize government, and then you will not be able to continue even the things that you wanted to do. I think the same way that you need to grow the pie, the same way that you have to start sharing it as long as the pie is growing. It's like you cannot say, I'm going to do 5 meals this week. So for now, you get no meal today, no meal tomorrow, and we all share the 5 meals on Friday. You're going to have a revolution in your house. So you have to share the pie while you're growing it. So basically, government has to do both. They have to keep growing the pie through growth, and they have to also make sure that they improve the redistribution policies, because we need to keep in mind, and we're talking about Africa. Africa, you have the youth is like 60, 70%. So those people, they want something now. So they cannot see growth happening in the country, like numbers are flash in TV. Oh, we did 7% of growth this year, 6% of growth last year. And then they see nothing trickling down. They don't have jobs. They're facing food insecurity. It's going to create a lot more problems that you can imagine. So I think we have to do both.
We have the time for 2 more questions over there.
Thank you so much. I'm curious if you can provide your perspective on the issue of reparations from like the global north to Africa and like powers that had previously colonized Africa and led to the current destabilization we see today. What do you think about that solution?
I think that's a very tough question.
Hi, thank you for sharing all of those opinions. My name is Wen Yu. I am an MPP1 student. I'm from China. I'm interested in learning. So you mentioned a lot of potential takes that can help to improve the situation right now in Africa, to boost the economy, to maybe address the issue of high Gini coefficient, etc. I'm just wondering, like, what are the IMF's focus right now, and what strategies is IMF taking at this moment to leverage the government's influence to address those questions?
One last more.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Lizzie. I'm an MPP1 student. One thing we haven't talked about yet is debt to the IMF, and I just like looked on my phone and saw that right now 48 African countries are in debt to the IMF, and this is a huge issue. It's really difficult to solve, and I just want to hear more from your perspective about what new things are the IMF doing right now to address this issue. Thank you.
Okay. So to start with the issue of reparation, I think the IMF has no view on the issue of reparation, and so that's the IMF answer to it. And then I have the Gomez answer to it. I think the reparation issue is a big issue. It's an issue that will require a global coordination and discussion and conversation. And personally, I believe in owning your own destiny as an African. And I think at the end of the day that it's up to each nation to be able to take their own destiny. Maybe reparation might happen in the future, maybe. But for now, what do we do with the resources that we have, with the people that we have, with the circumstances that we face? I think that, to me, is the most important question for each government and each country to deal with that. But this is really the African talking to you now. You raised the question of how the IMF can leverage government influence to tackle issues, right? So I think in reality is the question can actually be put around. I think the people who need to do the job of development is the government. It's not the IMF. The IMF should be there to assist, to accompany, to help, and other institutions. It's the government. I mean, if you look at the history of development, development happened not because it was driven by any external stakeholders. And I'm not talking about IMF, I'm talking about any external stakeholders. Development happened first because government, leaders of countries decided to make a change for them and for their people to come after them. So it's not to be to the IMF to leverage government influence to solve development issues. It's government to go and seek all the resources available, not only internally, but also outside, to try to address the development challenges that they're facing. On the last question on debt issue, it's a big issue. It's a really big issue because you have now many African countries that is facing very difficult debt situation. And this has actually worsened because of the international environment. You know, before 2020, the environment was basically low interest rate, easy money, big players coming to provide development aid. Not only we have the traditional players like the institutions, but also the Western countries. But now you had in the field China and other countries providing financing to countries. After 2020, that has drastically changed. First, you had COVID. Then after COVID, so during COVID, basically what happened is that the economy frozen, including for the African countries. So they had less growth, less revenues. And because you had COVID, you had to take care of the people, healthcare-wise, but also provide subsidies and taking care of them. So spending had to go up. If you have lower revenues, you have more spending. It means that you have more money that is missing, or that we will call a deficit. And that deficit, for you to be able to bridge it, you have to go take a debt. So debt quickly rise with that situation. On top of that, you had also a situation of an inflationary pressure coming from the war in Ukraine with Russia. And that also has forced government to try to keep the cost of living of the population, you know, to some reasonable extent. And that also meant more spending. Then you have all of this, and on top of that, market became very uncertain. And because of the inflationary pressure, the big central bank of the world had to react. You have the Federal Reserve, you have the ECB in Europe, and in Asia, the bank like Bank of Japan. So all those banks have to increase interest rate. That means, in plain term, that money became very expensive. So once your money becomes very expensive, the more you borrow, the more your debt dynamic is going to explode. And that's what basically happened for many countries. Now, what the IMF is doing, the IMF has been doing a lot of things in coordination with the World Bank and other donors. For instance, when the COVID hit, we launched the initial initiative, which we'll call the DSSI, which is the Debt Service Sustainability Suspension Initiative. Thank you, Jean-Baptiste. So we launched this one, and then that was for 18 months or 2 years. And after that, for the country that were in challenges, we had to go for another initiative, which is now called the G20 Common Framework, which is basically a debt relief for countries that's still facing a situation where they cannot service their debt or where debt is deemed to be unsustainable. And we're doing it in coordination with some of the Western countries that we call the Paris Club. Now you have very big stakeholders like China. So they also have to get involved into that debt restructuring. We are currently doing it for Chad. We're doing it for Ethiopia, for Zambia, and I'm sure that I'm missing one country, and Ghana, thank you. And we're also doing it for Ghana. Shame on me because I was working on Ghana right before the debt restructuring, and it's pity that I'm forgetting it. So yes, so we're doing it also for Ghana. And another thing that has made the situation more difficult is that, you remember at the beginning, I was saying that during the good times, you had the Western countries that were really strong on providing public aid to African countries. Now the public aid has drastically dropped. Of course, because the Western countries are also facing their own financial issues. And even China, who was a big player in providing funding to African countries, has also had to slow down the lending because China is also facing its own economic challenges. So we found in a world where basically you have less development aid coming from Western countries and new players like China. You have a market where money is now very expensive. and you have a growth that has slowed down because of all the shocks that I have mentioned. So now it's up to government to basically use domestic policies, meaning tax policies, spending policies, to be able not only to reduce the financing needs of different government, but also to be able to be very specific of what is important, what is not. In the past, we have the luxury of spending on everything. And that brings me back to the issue that was raised by my friend here, the subsidies. One of the reasons that the IMF is talking about a lot, you have to be targeted, is because money is not that available anymore because of the circumstances that I have just described. So you have to be very intentional and specific and very proactive in pushing for reform and doing the right things. I think you're the one leading it. So.
No, we are running out of time for questions. So we are closing now.
Is there any one last question? I think I already made a mistake to say we're going to close, so I don't want to close. One more question before we...
All right, I'll make it quick. Mohanad here from the MPID Year 1 from Jordan. And I was just wondering where you see the role of South-to-South cooperation. We talk a lot about reparations. We talk a lot about learning from developed countries. But what about lessons from kind of other kind of developing regions or kind of Southeast Asia, Latin America, Middle East? What do you think Africa can learn from those other regions? And what do you think those regions can learn from Africa?
I think there is a lot to learn between countries, and that's a very good question. It's here at Kennedy School. I think there is an amazing work done by, I think, Lan Pritchett. Africa today, the level of development of Africa is like the 1850s in Europe or the 1750s in America. So yes, there is a lot to learn from them, but they've been in our place so long ago that I'm not sure that you're going to... It's like if you go to a farmer in Africa and you tell him that he has to go see Elon Musk to learn how to be rich. I mean, the guy is struggling to have food on the table. I don't think that Elon Musk will be able to really... I mean, even if the guy is super smart and all of that, I have no doubt about it. But the issues are not the same. I mean, he's so far apart. He's completely on the extreme of the curve. It's the same thing for countries. But if you take Asia, you take Middle East, Asia was not that far from Africa, a few decades back. So there was a lot to learn from them. So I think that's something that needs to happen. The big question that, and I don't have an answer to it, is how do we organize that? I think that's a big question. How do we do it bilaterally? Do we put a framework in place where there is this, collaboration and discussion? It's not clear how we organize that. And I think governments on both sides of the regions, like Africa and Asia and Middle East, need to have more cooperation, not just about financing, but really about the policies that worked and how it happened with the people who, some of them are still alive, like the people who brought America where America is today. Like in the 1700s, they're already gone. Or in Europe, same thing. In Asia, you might still find some people who were there when they were making development happening in the 60s or in the 70s. And those are real institutional memories that we're talking about, and you can quickly learn from them, in the case of Africa.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gomez-Agou, and thank you all for coming. We have a little gift as a token for appreciation for joining us to the CID Speaker Series event. Thank you so much, and thank you all for coming. As you leave, please, if you didn't fill up the QR code for attendance, please fill it up. And thank you again, everyone. Happy Friday.
Thank you.